New bike day, box on the floor. Tuttio's waiting behind that door. Could be a beast. Could be a bust. Wrapped in foam, in wheels we trust? Let's crack it open, no more delay. We'll find out in this video today. Damn, ConnorG's a poet now? I'm sorry guys, I will never subject you to that again. What we're unboxing today here is the Tuttio Soleil 01. Am I the only one that finds that name kind of interesting? Anyways, this bike low-key became a super popular option, especially across TikTok, because it's marketed as an entry option to younger crowds. Its low price point is definitely its biggest selling point, coming in at just $13.99 brand new, a little bit cheaper when you use code ConnorG. Now, assembly is pretty much like any other bike you'd get in the mail. You've got to install the bars, forks, front brake, and front wheel. Quick intermission as we've reached a problem. Problem one, we're gonna have to do some shaving of these brake pads because this caliper just doesn't want to go on. The other problem is we cannot find the bolts that are meant to put the foot pegs on. Okay, false alarm. It looks like these bolts will work in this, so we're gonna get it set up. With the bike out of the box, you can see how it sits next to the RTR Lite as well as the RTR. Fairly similar in size, maybe just a tad bit smaller. What's also smaller is this battery. The Tuttio sports a 48 volt 20 amp hour battery. Compared to other bikes in this class, it's definitely, how do you say, petite. The battery is fully removable by removing this back little spindle, taking off the seat, and then removing this front spindle, after which you're able to pull it out of the bike itself. Look how cute this thing is. It's so little. Now this battery is charged via this little charger, also very cute. Now Tuttio claims up to 45 miles range on this thing. 45. This is a 48 volt 20 amp hour battery. We'll test if that's accurate next video. That said, this battery powers a direct drive 48 volt 2000 watt brushless motor, which alleges a top speed of 37 miles per hour and is just begging to be upgraded. As far as suspension goes, this thing appears to have kind of standard hydraulic pit bike style suspension, similar to what we see in bikes in this class. For big circular things that roll, we're looking at a 12-inch rear wheel and 14-inch front wheel, which come with some Junkai off-road style tires. In the stopping department, we're looking at fairly standard hydraulic 2-piston brakes. Only other thing I'll note on these is you can definitely tell they're made for kids because these levers are super tiny and close to the bars. Speaking of bars, these ones have a nice rise which should accommodate even some taller riders. The bike comes with 2 keys which find their mate in the ignition switch on the handlebars. I'm not a huge fan of handlebar mounted keys. I'd much rather see the ignition on the lower frame of the bike. Turning the bike on, you'll see a small display which indicates battery percentage, your speedometer, which mode you're in, and your trip meter. Honorable mention, they really pimped out on this orange kickstand. Looks like it's fully adjustable if you put different size wheels on it, and they really stuck to that whole orange aesthetic. Not sure how I feel about the orange, but it's basically a KTM, you know. Specs are in, it's looking tight. On paper, yeah, but does it bite? Let's gear up now and test it right. Okay, I pinky promise this is the last poem of the video. Well, here she is, the Tuttio Soleil 01. I feel like this bike is such a meme, but let's ride it. So, sitting down on this thing, seat's actually pretty comfortable. It's decently wide, does a little beep when you start. We're mostly charged. So let's get right into top speed, and I'll give some of my initial impression. We are firstly in eco mode, and this thing is a dog in eco mode. We're maxing downhill at about 15. That's enough of eco. Now we're in touring mode, as they call it. And as we get to the spot to do the top speed in tour mode, I will say the ergonomics on this thing are interesting. It's not uncomfortable. Your knees definitely sit high. I think the pegs could benefit from being a little bit lower, at least for a taller rider. And everything on it just feels kind of small. These levers feel super small. This throttle seems super small. Like my hand is getting caught in the display here. But all right, now let's do top speed. I'm not sure what that sound was. Top speed in touring, we're up to 25. Yeah, I don't think we're getting much more than 25. Let's pop it into sport, baby. All right, big difference I noticed going into sport here. 30, got a little downhill. 33, 34, 35. Not a ton of power, as you can tell. It's just barely climbing this hill, but we're up to 28. I mean, it's got a little bit of torque, but it's not crazy power, and that's because it's only a 48 volt. 28, 29, 30. Coming down this hill, 31, 32, 33. Yeah, I feel like around 35 is more of a realistic top speed for a rider like my size. I'm 165 pounds. 35, 36, and that's where we stop. Something's getting caught. I hear it smacking about. What is that? I think that's my rotor. Look at that thing. That is very interesting. Yeah, my rotor is just moving back and forth. That is not normal, dude. Listen to that thing. I took extra care and time to install this thing too. Yeah, it just sounds like it's moving about for some reason. Interesting. And I mean, these are the things that you get on a budget bike like this. Like, it's only $13.99. It's not expensive. I don't know why this is moving around, but yeah, I mean, these are the things that you experience on a budget bike. But let's go test. Oh, that's a brutal sound. But anyways, so let's go test it. Woo! Off-road. It sounds like a freaking someone shaking a spray rattle can. Again, it is a budget bike, so it's gonna have budget suspension. Oh, 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 oh. A little pogo sticky. Oh, geez. Tuttio in the wild. Let's do our trials test. Oh my God. I mean, it's definitely a cushy ride, I'll say for sure. So if you're like street riding mostly, it's honestly pretty cushy, especially with the seat, but it's not gonna be stiff enough to do proper off-roading and jumps, I'll say. We'll test the jumps in a sec, but see how we navigate up this. I don't know what the beeping is. She keeps beeping at me. To be fair, none of the bikes really make it up this well. Why is it yelling at me? Get up there, baby. Guys, in my testing, we also test how hard is it to push up a hill. This is pretty easy to push up a hill, but power just isn't quite there. Off-road test done. All right, I guess you could say passed the off-road test. Super soft suspension. I mean, it jumps all right. It's got suspension. Oh, interesting. Yeah, the thing about jumping this is that the suspension is like, it's really bouncy almost. The thing is, when you go up the lip and the suspension compresses, it almost like tosses you up. So it's a little scary, a little unpredictable. Same goes for landings, because you land and then it bounces you up. So top speed's done. It held up fine. Hit some trails. It held the line. But now it's time to see the best. Let's put this Tuttio to the wheelie test. Bet you guys didn't realize I even snuck that one in there. Yeah, I mean, with a good throw of the weight back and a bounce on the front forks, she'll wheelie. As far as wheelies go, it's definitely a slow speed thing. Again, the brakes are okay. They're not the worst brakes I've had out of a stock pit bike. They're not the best. But if you want to learn to wheelie, this is still definitely a good option. You're obviously just going to be limited on power, limited on brakes and upgrade options, but you could still wheelie it. Look at us go. You just don't have a ton of power is all. So I mean, if your only purpose of this bike is really just to learn to wheelie, which for me that's like usually my purpose, but I do like a bike that can also handle off-road and jumps and whatnot, but wheelies is what I care about most. And if you're looking to learn for a budget price, this could be a good option. But again, just consider the options you have similar to this that are only a little bit more money, and you just got to slow down a lot to wheelie too is the biggest thing. You're not going to wheelie this thing at speed. The power is not snappy at all. It's actually super predictable though. So you're not going to get it up just on power alone. Like, look, from a full stop, you're not going to get it up. You almost have to bounce the front. But once you get to balance point, it actually kind of floats semi well. There's just not a ton of power to keep the wheel up. I mean, guys, if you're just buying this bike primarily to learn to wheelie and wheelie it, it could definitely work for that. Okay, so the only thing is, once you get drop back, that's where the brakes kind of start to give way. Brakes would probably be something I'd upgrade, but to be fair, I upgrade brakes on every single bike that I get. But the thing that's weird about the Tuttio, not weird, the Tuttio actually has more of a standard dirt bike style on the rear. So the brakes are on the right side of the bike, the chain is on the left side of the bike. So I guess you just have to get a little more crafty with the upgraded brakes you put on it, because you're going to have to get different levers and it'll have to be flipped around the caliper itself, versus like if you just were to get Magura's or Formula E Moto brakes and put them on. So you'll have to do a little more work there to like swap around the levers and the calipers to get something to work. It's fun to wheelie though. It's a super low speed wheelie bike, and we almost looped. As far as sound goes, sounds like a pretty standard e-bike. It does have a bigger chain than the RTR and like standard modded razors do. It actually makes it a bit quieter. Sounds like my front brake caliper fixed itself, so we're good there. Where's my power? It can certainly handle like the basic stuff like this. It can handle wheelies. Whoops. Sorry, bikey. I think my biggest complaint is just that the way this thing looks, dude. But this is a way to get outside on a bike. I don't know if it would be my first choice, to be honest, based on aesthetic and the battery size, but if you're limited in funds, it could be a good option. But I kind of am always going to recommend spending a little bit more, work a couple extra shifts, buy once, cry once, and get something that has a 72 volt or at least a 60 volt battery. My seat holder spindle thing is flopping about. A lot of battery rattle, it sounds like. Oh my God. It's so rattly. What is rattling? I guess it's this mechanism to take the battery out. You pull these to the side, and then you put them in. That's got to be what's rattling in the... I mean, look at how much the battery moves. There's a ton of battery movement. Hate on it too much because it's a really budget price, but there's just better options, people. Spend a little more and not worry about things like this. Yeah, I understand why this bike is marketed to younger, newer riders, because I think even at 165 pounds, like, I'm not the heaviest person in the world, but dude, if you're 180, 200, 220, dude, this bike will not work for you. But if you're a kid that weighs 120 pounds, then it might be better. You're going to get better range, better top speed. Yeah, I'm trying to gather my feelings about how I really feel about this bike, because on one hand, it is a budget option, and budget options are going to obviously have their pros and cons. I'm for any bike that helps more riders get into the scene, especially with budget constraints, because let's be real, not everyone has freaking $5K to buy a new E-Ride Pro or an Ultra B. Something like this is nice, and then it gets more people into the scene, but I don't know, it's tough because you eventually just start making some sacrifices as far as quality, range, and power go, when if you spend just a little bit more, you can get a lot more out of the bike. So I mean, shout out to Tuttio for giving it a shot and giving another option for e-bikes. It only just makes it better for consumers. More competitors means more competitive options, better prices, but yeah, I don't know. So guys, the Tuttio Soleil 01. Overall, I think it's a fun bike. Again, I think the best thing about it is it's just a good way to get you in the scene for super cheap. There are definitely some drawbacks to cheap though. You're going to have quality issues just with it being a cheaper bike. I think aesthetically, it's not the most pleasing bike, but that's just personal opinion. But ultimately, yeah, I mean, it's fun for what it is. Is it going to be a bike that I'll keep? Definitely not. But if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them down in the comments. If you do want to buy a Tuttio, please feel free to use code ConnorG to save a couple bucks at checkout. But otherwise, guys, we're on the road to 100K subs. If you could subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it. Otherwise, I will catch you guys very, very soon. Peace.